look in the mirror and wonder, when did this happen to me? I had stared at what I thought had become for over an hour now. These dramatic changes to my body and a mental state. All of it began a year ago when my sister was taken by it. It was a cold December night. I was 17, and my parents left me with my sister at her apartment so they could go to some Christmas adult party. Everything was going fine. My sister and I stayed up watching horror movies, which, when I look back, was pretty ironic. After a while, I was getting bored and I started messing with my hair. Will you just cut your damn hair already, Tony? A guy's hair is not meant to be that long anyway. Tammy, it's my hair. I'll do what I want. She never did like the fact that I grew my hair. Freshman year. She always told me to cut it. She thought it was because she was 2 years older than me. She could tell me whatever I want, tell me what to do. I never held it against her, though. She's my sister after all, or was. We stayed up until midnight, and that was the end. That's when the end began for me. At midnight, the power went out. In the middle of watching the original Evil Dead. At first, we weren't that freaked out about it. When the first of the neighbor's dogs, who never shut up, suddenly stopped barking, followed by a faint whisper. At this point, we were becoming concerned and trying not to let our paranoia get the better of us. After several moments of dead silence, we hear a racket from the kitchen. It makes us both jump. Of course, it's your stupid cat, Mittens. We awkwardly chuckled about it. Then we heard a scream from down the hall, which makes the hairs on our necks stand up because it didn't sound human. Then the lights started flickering on and off, becoming more rapid and rapid. Then the flickering became violent and we heard whispers. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it felt like they were looking for someone or something. We both started to panic, so we backed up into a corner as far away from the door as we could. Then there came this sound, a ringing. It just started to drill through my head. I held my ears to shut it out, but it didn't help at all. It was like coming from the inside of my own head. Then finally, we see another ominous shadow came from beneath the door. The ringing noise was seemingly getting louder. I did my best to hold in my searing pain. But it seemed like it was going to best me. Before I could find out, my sister was the first to crack as she let out a piercing scream. As she did so, the door flew off its hinges to reveal a man, a tall, thin man, who seemed to be in front of a blinding light. As we stared at this man, the ringing had stopped. It was dead silent. As I looked at him, I could only see that his face was pale as the moon. The ringing was so aggravating it blurred my vision, and the light was so bright. Yeah, we saw this man. He looked more of an entity. There was no way it was human. As it stood there in the doorway, staring at us, we were caught in awe. My sister stood up and moved toward the figure. I tried to reach to grab her, but I was in too much shock to move. The figure seemed to slide toward my sister with its arms outstretched, with the intent to embrace her. I'll never forget what happened next after that moment. One moment she was there, standing in front of the tall man. Then came a flash of light, and she was gone. But it was still there.
It stared at me. I curled in fear at the corner of what I had witnessed. My vision cleared and I saw this thing. No, this thing had no face, no eyes, no mouth, nose, nothing. After a short while, I began to hear whispers again, and I knew where they were coming from. This creature, it continued to stare at me as it looked back into its face. The ringing started to come back, but also something else, a feeling, and this feeling enraged me. Finally, I couldn't take longer. What did you do with her? I screamed at it. Where is she? But to no avail. It continued to just stare as if it were intrigued by me. As it continued to do so, a terrible feeling was growing in my chest. It was becoming unbearable. Give her back to me, I commanded, but it was continued to stare. All the while, the feeling continued growing in my chest. The ringing got louder, the lights began flickering again. Whispers growing faster. I could not stand it anymore. I picked up a fallen lamp and threw it at the tall man, an action I wish I could take back. As the lamp made contact with him, he immediately dissipated away, which seemed to have made all the lights in the room. And in the hall, short circuit, the ringing in my ears blows up, causing me to pass out. Jeez. The next thing I know, I woke up in the ER, in an ER bedroom, with my mother sleeping in a chair and surrounded by get well cards and balloons. My mother woke up around the same time my father had gotten there. They explained everything as best as they could. The police had assumed a serial killer managed to cut the lights out in the apartment complex and kill all security cam feeds. Then he made his way to the art floor, where the police found several mutilated bodies of people and a dog. In several of the victims' rooms, there was a circle shape on the walls filled with a large X. I had been out for 2 weeks following the incident, and I was the only survivor on the floor the serial killer had visited. My parents told me the police would want to interview on what happened, and they'd be here shortly. Until then, I was to eat some breakfast and try my best to rest, which was easier said than done. It almost took my weight and my height, which was 150 pounds and 5'8". So I was eating breakfast. I had a weird, familiar sensation, that feeling groping my chest, as if something was trying to get out of me. I assumed I had to throw up, so I went to the restroom. As I stood there in the ER bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror, and I noticed I was pretty pale. I was sick with what I saw, too. All I could think was how I let my sister be taken by that thing. After several minutes in the bathroom, I managed to throw up, although it didn't really make me feel any better. In fact, I could almost hear the haunting whispers in the back of my head again, and a faint ringing. As I was interviewed by the police, I told them everything I remembered. I told them about the thin man that did not seem human at all, and my sister had vanished in a blinding light. Of course, they did not believe a distressed teenager. I recommended my parents to take me to a therapist because I was showing signs of post-traumatic stress, and they did so. And the therapist I saw did her best to help me. I can't remember her name, but after a while, I stopped trying to convince others of what I saw. They just refused to believe something unbelievable. As ironic as that sounds, life never moved on for me since then. I would always have these nightmares of that creature. I would dream I was in the apartment again, staring at the creature, screaming at it. I only wasn't screaming what I said in the apartment, instead asking it, "What are you?"
only hear those haunting whispers digging into my brain. Every time I have that dream, I wake up sweating, go to the bathroom to wash my face, stare at myself in the mirror, and remember that godforsaken ring